and I took all my fingers, and I've been doing stuff out in the field myself, and I do operate wells, so I'm familiar with all that type of things, and so I think one of the concerns was what's going to happen when these wells are plugged out. To me, these are shallow wells. They shallow, as a reservoir engineer, generally means low bottom hole pressure. So there's not a lot of oomph left in these things when it's abandoned and through. As far as the way that an operation would be installed today is much better than it was 30, 40 years ago. We have polypipe for flow lines, so you don't have corrosion. You have very good pressure ratings. It's easier to install. There's no connections, or there's very few connections. Casing is better. Cementing is better. There's just been a lot of improvements in the way things are done in the industry. And since this is a brand new operation, all those things I would hope would be utilized to be for safety purposes. But as far as plugging of the wells, I'm sure we all live around places that have wells on them that have been plugged. In our area, Augusta was a huge field, and our El Dorado is currently a big field, and there's plugged wells and people living around them, and so it's not uncommon. There's a community in Wichita called Eastboro. It's very exclusive, little borough, very nice place. That was an oil field at one time, and I've got a picture. I meant to bring it, but it shows flat ground, no trees, and oil derricks all over the place. And now that's Eastboro community. So houses are built around plugged wells all the time. And today's, the KCC watches it very closely. They have individuals responsible for plugging exclusively. To me, the opportunity for some risk down the road would be pretty slim. A lot of times they would fill a well bore with cement, so you have essentially a pillar of cement between you and the formation. Most of the wells around here, when they're completed in the first place, they drill down. I heard something about mud. These are shallow wells that are drilled with air, so there shouldn't be any mud associated with it. They dig a pit and so the cuttings and everything is blown into and so whatever fluids might come out of the formation would be come out with the cuttings with the air, but there shouldn't be any mud. It's a very clean and I think a very safe way of drilling the wells. But the wells are drilled, and when the casing is run in the hole, cement is circulated all the way around it. So the casing is cemented from top to bottom, and it's really cheaper to do it that way, and it's much better to do it that way. So the casing is cemented on the outside, and so when it's plugged, it would be cemented on the inside. That's a pretty secure plug. So, but at any rate, anything I could answer questions about anything that was raised?
Please. In the fracturing process, are chemicals being used for that, or just water?
I think 99% of the fluid that's used to frack is water.
99%.
99%. Most of these wells are done with it's called a slick water frack. So they will put some gelling agents in there. The gelling agents make the water a little thicker, but it also makes it very slick, and so that reduces the pressure it takes to make the fractures be induced. But it's 99% water, and the reason for that is that anything that's introduced into the wellbore, into formation, can cause harm to the formations, its ability to produce oil or gas if there's any there. So, but that's the majority of it is water.
what is the other 1%? I mean, what chemicals?
It would be like the gels for guar. When I was with Amoco, we went to our research facility and they were telling us about some of the polymers that were used, guar gums, and they say it's the same thing that at that time, back in the 70s, was used to make malts at McDonald's, to make them thick. So it's a thickening agent, and it's made from lettuce mold, of all things.
Lettuce mold.
So.
Has that been proven to be not harmful to any water supply or anything that goes into the ground?
Yeah, I don't believe there's anything harmful in these fracture fluids. As far as what it's done in other places, but as far as in this part of the world, these slick water fracs are mainly just water, and that's because we don't want contaminants in there either.
Does the existing wells that are on here, are those eliminating something different than what's being proposed? I mean, it looks like in proximity that's not too far off, so if it's eliminating 1% of something, there's existing wells already there, right? So I guess I'm not.
Do we know if those wells are doing the same, all the wells around, are they doing the same thing, same fracturing process, same chemicals?
These producers, they can't produce without fracturing them. So what they use, I don't know.
So it's safe to say they do, though?
What?
They're fracturing. They're using the same chemicals, same...
Yeah, they would, in order to make these things, these tight sands produced, they have to be fracked.
So you're saying there's no risk of groundwater contamination from this process?
Well, the fracturing, when rock is fractured, we got the formation cased off, and we perforate in the zone we want to fracture or complete in. The fracture is designed based on a rate and then whatever pressures you can operate safely with inside your casing string. And the rates that are used around here, the rate that you're fracturing at determines the frac height. So the frac height is controlled. We don't want a fracture to be wasted by fracturing outside of the zone. The fractures, generally these sands are contained by shales, which are fairly good confining boundaries usually. So our fracs that we put in are designed to not go vertically very much at all. So if we're at 800 feet and we fracture in, it's an 8-foot sand, we would try to contain that fracture inside 8 foot. So maybe say it'll have a frac height of say 10 feet. So we're still moving around the 800 foot interval up or down 10 feet. So it's nowhere near groundwater.
So you are saying no risk?
I would say very little risk of any kind.
So my question again would be, what's the difference between, what am I missing here with these existing wells that are that far off? Are they just because they're not close enough that you can eliminate anything else?
I don't understand the question.
Well, just that there's existing wells, right? So, especially just overall, I mean, in 1A it says, you know, some of these other wells that have been plugged and stuff and then residential areas been, you know, put over them. So what is the difference between maybe what's been done in the past to now? Just that it's closer in proximity to potential hazards?
Like Celebration Park and the school, is
Yeah.
that why?
Yeah.
And the water treatment plant?
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, fractures are not meant to propagate. These wells are spaced usually on 2.5 acre spacing. So if that is 330 feet between them, then fractures are designed to go a few hundred feet out from the wellbore. So that's their lateral distance that they would. So we try to confine it in a vertical level, but then they go out laterally just a few hundred feet. So they're not going to influence something half a mile away. That particular frac anyway. Is that your question?
Kind of. And I don't know that I'm asking it right, but
Are you trying to state that there's so many, you know,